Hello Vlogalogue, how are you doing? I hope you're doing well. I'm recording on a different setup today because my AC is running full blast and it is really, really loud. So I didn't want to try and record on my regular setup because you wouldn't be able to hear anything. And I also don't dare turn off the AC because it is sauna-like outside. And this is, you know, in the evening, it's still sauna-like. So I apologize for that. I want to call Alex out because he didn't give us an actual prompt, really. He gave us a theme, but not a prompt. It's like a half prompt. He wants us to talk about a word that we love or hate, and then just talk about that. Oops, I'm just moving stuff so I can rest my arms pleasantly on the desk. And I was trying to think of, nothing came to mind, I guess I should say. So I want to talk about more words in general. I have a history of being, I don't know if it's a public history, but I have a history of being a bit of a grammar Nazi and the type of person who really enjoys mild irritation at the usage of language. When people try and change things, when people say LOL or lol, and it used to be you had the feeling that you were kind of the defender of how we needed to interact with each other. And I think there's a part of it that I think I'm much less so now, but there's a part of it that I think comes from, I mean, there are a couple of reasons for, and it's not even a grammar Nazi, it's more of a semantics linguistic Nazi, but there are a couple of reasons to argue that language should remain somewhat static. And that is really, one is just kind of historical. It's this is the way things have always been. It's tradition for us to use words in this way, or for us to use, you know, this particular set of words to describe a phenomenon, and then we don't need to come up with another term. And I think that's perhaps just a stuck in your ways sort of mentality. The other reason, which I think is still somewhat valid, is that we want to make sure that when we say something, that the maximum amount of people will be able to understand what it is that we say. But even by that token, there's a subset, speaking just about English here, because I don't have a background really in other languages. I wish I did. But there's a subset of English called Basic English, which is, I believe it's 100 words, and it's kind of selected such that you should be able to communicate any particular thought, that you may need to use a combination of words in which to do it. Sort of in a similar way that you have, you know, with American Sign Language, you know, there's not a word for like ennui. Maybe there is, I don't know. But it's still the sort of thing that you could try and convey the idea by composing a whole bunch of smaller and simpler words, or even by spelling the thing out using the alphabet. So I think that there's an argument to be made that even if you're trying to say that language needs to remain a certain way so that it can be easily understood by people, then maybe that means that we shouldn't use words like ennui. But no, I think it's interesting. There's it's in the same way that John Green says that books belong to their readers. I'm coming around to the idea that languages really belong to their speakers. There was a TED Talk that I watched maybe a year ago that talked about some of the language of texting and how things like LOL actually serve a particular purpose outside of just being ha. And that is specifically that when we speak in person, we have a set of kind of physical, like sort of facial and verbal cues to indicate a transition between subjects, like a hard stop. Because you don't say, this is something that I'm talking about, period. New line, new line. On another note, you know, that sounds very weird, and yet, you know, we have this idea of saying, you know, oh yeah, no, that's really cool. oh, hey, did you think about, and then there's a clear delineation that I'm transitioning to a new topic, so don't accidentally confuse this as a follow-up to, the preceding text. And, of course, when you're texting, you don't really get that, because you can't just say, okay, well, I'll just wait 10 minutes and then text them something, because it could just be that this was a delayed reply to the existing conversation, so that things like LOL actually work. They actually serve a kind of a linguistic purpose to mark a transition without, I suppose you could type in all caps, new topic, and then continue typing, but that feels, a little bit rude, per se. So, I find it interesting. Words are fascinating, and the way that we use words are fascinating. And I do sort of worry about how in the age of the internet that we adopt all of these new phrases, and then it becomes very difficult. Excuse me. If someone were to say go offline for like 2 years, would they be able to communicate with us internet people, or would they be confused AF? I don't know. I'd like to think that the majority of our language remains consistent, and it's not going to be a huge deal. But even then, there's there's the expression FOMO, the fear of missing out. I think that's a bit of a lackluster phrase. It should be more knowledge of, or awareness of, missing out. AOMO, because I'm really starting to understand that there's no possible way that I can keep up to date with all of the things. With the music of the times, and the games of the times, and the anything, and we have to get comfortable with the idea that there are going to be huge swaths of culture that we are going to ultimately be oblivious to, and figuring out how we kind of stay comfortable with that. I don't know where I'm going with any of this, but I find it fascinating. Okay, I will give you one example of a word that confuses me. Well, it's not even a word. It's a set of words, and this is it's something actually I heard Scott Manley say in one of his videos, and it just reminded me that this pattern existed. That is the verb need or want with a bare infinitive participle. I don't remember. I looked it up, but if I were to say, I want fed. Now, to me, that confused the heck out of me the first time that I heard it. But apparently, this is something that then, there's this group at Yale that I think tracked where this is commonly used, and it seems the boundary is like Indiana to Pennsylvania, so Ohio, and it goes kind of fairly south as well. But you would say the dishes need washed, or I need fed, or the baby needs changed. The obvious alternatives, which would make sense to kind of everyone else, who are not familiar with that particular construction, would be to say the baby needs cleaning, or the baby needs to be cleaned. But it's interesting to me, because I don't know, it used to bug me, and now it's more of a, well, how does that start? How do people start using those words in that way? Is this because, and I looked up, and it's not the sort of thing where it's just like it's a white trashy sort of thing. It's become common parlance in a particular community, and it's not restricted to kind of it's not like a class thing. It's a regional idiosyncrasy. And so I find that fascinating. Yes, this is what happens, Alex, when you don't give us full prompts. Said I have no idea. So I apologize, and I will see you all next week. Bye, Vlogalogue.